Chapter 4. The Accident. Autumn turned to winter. In the regular Saturday morning meeting, Joan clapped her hands and asked everyone to be quiet. Everyone stopped talking and looked at her.
The council is going to pull this place down, so we have 1 month to find a new meeting place. Has anyone got any ideas?
The room was silent.
Well, if we want to keep Helping Hand, we must find a place for our office. So get onto your bicycles or motorbikes and start looking.
This is your chance to ride your bicycle out in the countryside.
Cathy had an old bicycle she'd bought from a friend at Helping Hand. At the moment, the bicycle was at the bike shop. William's friend George wanted to mend the brakes before Cathy went out onto the busy roads.
We'll go on Sunday. We can join the others and have a picnic.
Cathy got up early on Sunday morning and walked to the shop to collect her bicycle.
Hello, you're up early, aren't you?
Yes, we're going on a picnic today, so I need my bicycle.
Well, the new tyres are on and the front brake works, but today I wanted to mend the back brake. It's not working properly.
Oh, never mind. I'll ride slowly and I'll try to be very careful with the front brake.
It's very dangerous to use the front brake without the back one. If you put it on too hard, you'll fall off.
She still didn't know how to ride her bicycle very well, but she wanted to go on the picnic more than anything else.
Show me what to do, then I won't be in any danger.
George got onto the bicycle and rode round Cathy. Then he put on the front brake. The back wheel of the bicycle moved to the side, and George nearly fell off.
Now you see what can happen?
He pushed the bike over to where Cathy stood.
Yes.
Now you try, but this time use the front brake gently.
Cathy rode slowly around George, then gently put on the front brake. The bicycle slowed, then stopped.
That's it. But remember, you have no back brake. Your bicycle is dangerous.
Thank you, George. And don't worry, I really will be very careful. That must be William and the others.
Well, have a good time and bring your bicycle back here tonight, so then I can fix it properly.
Goodbye, and don't worry.
She got on her bicycle and went to meet the others. They all started cycling together towards the countryside.
Is everything all right?
No problem.
At the end of the road there was a hill. They all cycled slowly up that hill, and Cathy pedalled harder to catch up with them. At last they got to the top.
Who wants to race me down the hill?
They started going down the hill. They were going faster and faster, and William was singing loudly.
This is like flying!
Cathy's bicycle zoomed down the hill. Suddenly, Cathy saw a crossroads at the bottom of the hill. A lorry was coming slowly from a side road, moving into the main road. Gently, Cathy put on the front brake of her bicycle. But it just slowed a little. It didn't stop.
Put your brakes on, Cathy!
I can't! William, help! Oh my God!
Cathy froze with fear. She saw the look of horror on the lorry driver's face just before she crashed into the side of his lorry. Then, for a moment, everything went black. Chapter 5. Life or Death. Cathy heard people shouting, and then the sound of her bicycle wheels spinning round. She opened her eyes and saw William's face, among other faces, looking down at her. Finally she felt the pain all over her body. It slowly spread from her head to the rest of her body. It was so bad she could hardly breathe. A siren sounded in the distance. William, who sat on the road next to her, gently lifted her head.
You shouldn't move her. The ambulance is coming now.
This is a bad one. We'll take her now.
Can I go with her in the ambulance?
She won't know you're there, but get in if you like.
Don't worry about your bike. We'll bring it to the hospital.
Thanks.
William climbed into the ambulance and sat down near Cathy. He felt terrible. In fact, he was shaking. Cathy looked so white, and there was a deep cut on her head. At the hospital, William was walking beside the stretcher, praying for Cathy's life, while tears filled his eyes. The nurse came up to him.
Wait here, please.
Will she be all right?
I'm sure she will. You should drink a cup of sweet coffee. It's good for shock. You look terrible.
The nurse brought William some coffee. He drank the hot coffee slowly. The long wait had begun. Slowly, the young people from Helping Hands started coming into the hospital. At first, they talked to William, but he didn't want to talk. He only wanted Cathy to be well, happy, and laughing again, as she was a while ago on the way to the picnic. 1 hour passed, then another. The young crowd left, but William sat quietly and waited. The clock ticked on the wall, and the hands moved round, then round again. William hated that clock. Then the door opened, and the doctor walked up to him. William couldn't speak or even breathe.
You William?
Yes, how is she?
A nasty bump on the head, some cuts and bruises, but nothing broken. She's awake now and wants to see you. She also shouted the name Hampton House. Is it her home?
No, it isn't.
Yeah, she must stay in town when she leaves the hospital. No long journeys on trains or buses.
I'll make sure she stays in town. But can I see her now, please?
Yes, she's waiting for you.
Cathy smiled shyly at William. He looked tired, and his T-shirt was covered in dirt and blood. He sat down on the chair next to her bed.
How do you feel? You gave me an awful fright.
Much better now. The doctor says I can go home tomorrow.
Yes, he said you're fine. He also told me that you said something about a house called Hampton, or something like that.
Hampton House. A lady I met in the old people's home said she used to work there once.
A nurse came into the room.
It's time you went, young man. Come again tomorrow and take her home.
Good night, Cathy. See you tomorrow.
Good night, and thank you, William.
Cathy relaxed and closed her eyes. She thought about the old lady's story.
Who was the old woman? Why did she tell me about her past? She seemed to know me, but I had never seen her before. Rich masters with lots of servants have not been around for a long time, and the old lady looked so old. This Lord Hampton, can he still be in that house? Why did she give me the invitation? Oh, it's the bump on my head that makes me feel confused. The man must be over 100 years old. The house is probably empty.
With this last thought, Cathy felt very calm. When the nurse opened the door a few moments later, she was pleased to see that Cathy was asleep. Chapter 6. Hampton House. For the next few days, Cathy stayed quietly at home. In the evenings, people came to visit her and told her about the search for a new meeting place. Everyone in the town was helpful, offering their garages, garden sheds, or even their spare rooms. But none of the places were any good as an office for Helping Hand.
That's it then. Helping Hand will have to close.
What about Hampton House? An old lady at the old people's home was telling me about it. Maybe it's just what we need for an office, as it's been empty for years.
It's worth a try. You never know.
2 days later, William found some information about the house. He told Cathy that it was near the old people's home. He had checked on an old map of the town and found out where it was.
We're going there this afternoon. Do you want to come, Cathy?
Of course! You can't leave me behind.
It was a warm afternoon. Kathy sat behind William on his motorbike and waved to the crowd from Helping Hand. They wanted to come and look round the old house too. After a long ride, they finally saw its old wall with tall iron gates in the middle of it. Some energetic young people climbed up onto the high wall, while others looked in through the gate. Kathy saw a wild garden with old trees covered in ivy. The house was exactly as she had imagined it, except the roof had fallen in. The windows were covered in dirt and dust, and they were cracked from the stones children had thrown at them for fun.
It's falling down. What do you think, Sue?
It does look dangerous. Where are you going, Adam?
I'm going to have a look round.
Adam jumped off the top of the wall into the garden. Everyone watched in fear as he tried to walk across the wild garden to the house. Suddenly, he came back to the wall and climbed quickly over it to the road.
Snakes! The garden is full of snakes!
That's it then. We can't use the old house.
I'm not afraid of snakes.
Before anyone could stop her, Kathy climbed up to the top of the wall and jumped down. Carefully, she walked across the garden to the heavy wooden front door. She bent down and cleared the stones and earth from the bottom. Then she slowly turned the big brass handle to open it. The door opened just enough for Kathy to get inside. Then it closed behind her. Kathy was in a large room. The walls were cracked and peeling. The ceiling hung down in places and the floor was covered in dust. The few floorboards that showed looked worm-eaten and dangerous. Kathy saw a great staircase covered with spiders' webs, and a small mouse sitting on the bottom step. Quickly it jumped away in a cloud of dust. Kathy became so frightened that she couldn't move. She was ready to leave the house when she saw a large table and 4 chairs. There was no dust on them. A candlestick stood in the middle of the table, with a lit candle in it. Kathy went closer, and at that moment she heard the voice.
Please sit down, Kathy.
Strangely, Kathy felt relaxed and comfortable when she heard it. She sat down on the nearest chair and waited. A plate of delicious food appeared in front of her. It was hot and smelt delicious. Kathy felt hungry, so she picked up the heavy silver knife and fork. And soon her plate was empty. It disappeared, and a bowl of strawberries and cream arrived in its place.
Lovely, thank you. I never could say no to food.
Our time together is not ended. Please, come to the house another day, Kathy.
She accepted the invitation, then carefully stood up from the table and walked round the room, keeping close to the wall, until she reached the front door. It opened easily, and she was outside again in the bright sunshine. The crowd gathered round her.
What happened?
Is the house any good for our meetings?
Why did you stay in there so long?
Kathy told them about the clean table and chairs, about the lovely meal, and about the voice. She saw the way they looked at each other, and she knew they didn't believe her.
Come on, Kathy. It seems the bump on your head is more serious than we thought.
If there's free food inside, I'll go next time.
Everyone relaxed and laughed as they walked away from the old house.